Welcome to this course on Task 1C. We're going to focus on creating an arrangement for house music along with the Seven Nation Army. Now, in this course, you're going to find all the resources that you need and some really helpful tips on researching. It's really important to say that this is not a cheat sheet. This is just kind of get you into practice of using good practice and actually demonstrating and experimenting without wasting too much time. What I found over the past few years of teaching this particular module is that it's always left until quite close to the end of the course, and then you're really up against it. Now, you do need to allow yourself probably the best part of a couple of months to kind of complete this, because it is quite a big task and you do need to do lots and lots of research. But we're going to put at your fingertips some of the research that we've done so that you can extend on that and have a look at how this all fits together. So the first thing to note is this arrangement has to be between 2 and 3 minutes. It has to be sequenced. However, you are permitted to use short samples, but you do need to accredit them to the right people, and you do need to shape them to make sure that they are your own work in the end, and they need to be royalty free. So this is really good. The fact that it has to be 2 to 3 minutes allows you to kind of be a bit more flexible on it. And most of my students generally produce something that's about 2.5 minutes. So you do need to make sure it's substantial and that the structure is fitting, okay? So the idea with what we're trying to do here is we're taking house music and we're taking Seven Nation Army and we're putting them together. So don't think of this as a composition, think of it definitely as an arrangement. We are stealing elements from the songs and we're stealing elements from the style, and we're taking them and we're putting them into our own arrangement. So when you listen to your song and you think, actually, I'd really like to use that, it's absolutely okay to do that, okay? It has to be your own work. You're not allowed to rip off MIDI files or anything like that. But if you hear something in a song, you can use it. And the good thing about that is if you reference it in your logbook, you can also gain marks for it. One thing that students and sometimes teachers don't necessarily understand about this particular task is that it is actually worth 60 marks, whereas task 1A is worth 40, task 1B is worth 40. This one is actually worth 60 because you get 40 for the actual project that you complete, and you also get 10 marks for question 9 and 10 marks for question 10. So it's really important that you understand how to fill in those two areas. You obviously do have to fill in the rest of the logbook as well, otherwise you will lose marks all over the place. But those ones become quite important just to kind of top your grade up as well. And another way of thinking about those particular 20 marks, if you don't fill it in properly, think of that as between 1 and 2 grades that you'll lose, okay? It's that big. If you mess up on the exam just a little bit, but you do really well on the logbook, you could subsidise that. Whereas if you don't even try on the logbook, you will lose at least a grade, okay? So think about it like that. You do need to spend the attention and get that on there. So what are we going to look at here? Let's just move to this second slide. So taking the elements from the song. Now we're using this White Stripes Seven Nation Army song. And we're literally, and the reason I've chosen this particular song is because it's really simple. So what I'm going to do is probably take elements from the structure. I particularly like the intro where it builds up, starting with the guitar and then moves on to the drums. And I also like the way that the structure is phrased in this 8-bar section. And it also fits with what I'm trying to do with my house music, because I'm going to take Pump Up the Volume as one of my reference tracks. It also fits with their 8-bar kind of progressional sequence that they use. The other thing is the riff that they use. I'm going to take that, and I'm obviously going to take parts of the melody. I will need to manipulate the melody, and I will need to manipulate the riff. But that's fairly easy to do, because all I'm going to do is put it on different instruments, or put it at different octaves, or reverse it, and experiment with these different kind of arrangement techniques. And we will go through all of these elements with you, okay? So those are kind of 4 or 5 elements we're going to take. We're also going to take the key and probably parts of the chord progression, okay? So when it comes to filling in the logbook, those are the things I'm going to write about. Those 4, 5, 6 things are what I'm going to write about when it comes to filling in the section on the stimulus, okay? And then when we come to the actual arrangement of the style, the elements that I'm going to take are, we're going to look at the rhythms that are used for the style. We're going to look at the drum patterns that are used. We're going to look at more of the way that they use samples and they develop them. And there's quite a lot to write about. And I said about this referencing Mars's Pump Up the Volume. That is my first reference track. That's the one that I'm going to base the initial startup point on. And you do have to have a starting point so that you don't waste too much time. I also like this David Guetta song, Lovers on the Sun, which is fantastic. It starts off a bit mellow and then it goes into the more kind of dancey section. And I quite like that. And that'll kind of fit really well with what I'm trying to do with my actual stimulus. And then finally, I'm going to look at this Duke Dumont one, I Got You, which is a really nice song actually, and I'm going to use a few elements on that. Now, I think that's pretty much all I need to say about that. One other thing though is it specifies that it's house. You can also do a reggae, but I'm focusing on house for this one. Now, they give you suggested artists. Now, what I would say to you is there's a reason that they suggest Mars, David Guetta, and Duke Dumont. Is because that's the kind of arrangement house that they want, okay? House has lots and lots of different subgenres, and it has a wide range from these more grungy to these more mellow sort of house subgenres. And they've specifically asked you or suggested to you that these are the more appropriate ones. Now, I would definitely stick with these artists. A lot of my students in the past have gone off on a tangent with the more unknown artists. And that's good. It's good that they're thinking out of the box. But actually, at least as a starting point, focus in on what these guys are producing, because Edexcel has asked for that, so it really does make sense. And the final point before we get cracking with setting up the project is do your research. There is no substitute for listening to the actual song, so Seven Nation Army, or I can't remember what the other one was, but listen to the song over and over and over. Write lots of notes about the elements that you're going to use. Okay, there is a lead sheet in this lesson that you can have a look at and download. It's the one that Edexcel produced for us. And then do lots of listening to your house music, your 3 artists on your house music. There is no substitute for absolutely listening and jotting down notes and doing your research and then experimenting with these ideas, okay? You need to take that further though. Experiments are all well and good, but what a lot of my students do is they actually do lots of experiments and then they end up putting into their score something that's completely different. Use the experiments that you've done. There's a reason you're experimenting. There's a reason you're going through that process. So make sure you try to use them. Okay, that's pretty much all I have to say in this intro. Hopefully this is going to be a good course. Hopefully you're going to get a lot out of it. Please feel free to go further than I'm going to do. I'm just going to give you the basics of how I'm producing this, just as a kind of starting point and get you going in the right direction, okay? So I'll see you in the next lesson.